Creepy dolls have long been a staple of horror, and their eerie presence in movies and television during the 1960s reflected the fascination with the uncanny and the unsettling. Although this period predated some of the most iconic creepy doll films of later decades, it still laid the groundwork for this chilling subgenre. Here's a look at 6 notable creepy doll appearances in movies and TV shows from the 1960s. Welcome back to the Hauntasm YouTube channel. 1961, The Curse of the Doll People, a Mexican film that is dubbed into English. The original title was Muñecos Infernales, meaning infernal dolls. Director, Benito Alazraqui. Writers, Alfredo Salazar and Abraham Merritt. The stars are Elvira Quintana as Karina, Ramon Gay as Dr. Armando Valdez, Roberto G. Rivera as Molinar, and Quintin Bulnes as Zandor, the voodoo priest. The story revolves around a group of scientists who, while on an expedition, steal sacred artifacts from a voodoo cult. Unbeknownst to them, their actions trigger a deadly curse. Upon returning home, the scientists are haunted by strange occurrences. The voodoo priest Zandor seeks revenge by using black magic to create living dolls. These dolls, crafted in the likeness of their victims, are animated by supernatural forces and carry out the priest's revenge by attacking and killing the scientists one by one. The dolls appear unassuming, but their ability to move, attack, and kill makes them terrifying. As the scientists and their families fall victim to these infernal dolls, the survivors must find a way to break the curse before it's too late. The dolls' lifelike appearances and sudden movements make them unnerving. Unlike more grounded horror films, the supernatural elements make the dolls nearly unstoppable, amplifying the sense of dread. The idea that these dolls are controlled by an unseen force heightens the tension and mystery. The film draws inspiration from the gothic aesthetics of earlier horror films like those produced by Universal Pictures. The dolls were portrayed by little people actors wearing makeup and costumes, combined with puppetry and props to enhance the illusion of their autonomy. The film uses shadowy lighting, eerie sound design, and tense pacing to create an unsettling mood. The film is a product of Mexico's thriving horror cinema scene in the 1950s and 1960s, which often combined traditional folklore with supernatural horror. It reflects the era's fascination with voodoo and exoticized depictions of other cultures, a trope common in mid-20th century horror. While not widely known outside of Mexico, The Curse of the Doll People has gained a cult following among fans of vintage and international horror. The moment when one of the dolls moves for the first time is a chilling realization for the characters and the audience. The film was praised for its eerie atmosphere and creative concept, though its low budget and reliance on stereotypes about voodoo were criticized. Over time, it has become appreciated as a classic example of Mexican horror cinema and a unique entry in the creepy doll subgenre.
That's the sacred idol of the Combas. What have you done, Doctor?
I only brought it home as a souvenir.
This is frightening. No matter where you go or hide, Doctor, you'll be hunted out and the curse will come true.
The Twilight Zone, The Dummy, Season 3. Episode 33 aired on May 4th, 1962. This story of a ventriloquist terrorized by his dummy combines psychological tension with doll horror. Jerry Etherson, played by Cliff Robertson, is a ventriloquist struggling with his act, his career, and his sanity. His dummy Willie, voiced by George Murdoch, is no ordinary puppet. Jerry is convinced that Willie is alive and malevolent. Jerry's fears are dismissed by his manager, Frank, played by Frank Sutton, who believes Jerry's paranoia stems from alcoholism or mental instability. However, Jerry insists that Willie is scheming against him, whispering taunts and moving on his own. In an effort to escape the puppet's sinister grip, Jerry replaces Willie with a new dummy named Goofy Goggles. Despite this, Willie continues to torment Jerry, seemingly jealous of being replaced. The tension builds to a horrifying climax when Willie gains complete control over Jerry's fate. In the chilling final scene, it's revealed that Willie and Jerry have switched roles. Willie is now the ventriloquist, and Jerry has become the dummy, trapped in a wooden form with a lifeless expression. The episode draws on the long-standing tradition of creepy ventriloquist dummies in popular culture, influenced by earlier films like the 1945 Dead of Night. Cliff Robertson's portrayal of Jerry's unraveling sanity is widely praised, with his expressive acting heightening the episode's tension. Willie's unsettling appearance was carefully crafted to enhance his sinister presence. The Dummy is considered one of the quintessential episodes of The Twilight Zone, frequently ranked among the series' scariest entries. Its exploration of psychological terror and its iconic twist ending have inspired countless homages in later horror films and television shows.
You made me real. You poured words into my head. You moved my mouth. You made me what I am today.
The Twilight Zone Living Doll. Season 5, Episode 6 aired on November 1st, 1963. This iconic episode from the Twilight Zone series features Talkie Tina, a seemingly harmless doll with a sinister side who terrorizes her owner's stepfather. Talkie Tina is voiced by the legendary June Foray, famous for Rocky the Flying Squirrel, who shifts the doll's tone from sweet to menacing throughout the episode. The story revolves around a dysfunctional family: Eric Streeter, played by Telly Savalas, famously known for the Kojak TV series, his wife Annabelle, played by Mary LaRoche, and her daughter Christy Eric, played by Tracy Stratford. Eric is a bitter and domineering man who resents Christy because she's not his biological daughter. His frustration boils over when Annabelle buys Christy a new doll named Talkie Tina. Talkie Tina appears to be an ordinary talking doll, much like the popular Chatty Cathy dolls of the era. However, when Eric interacts with the doll, its behavior takes a sinister turn. Instead of reciting cheerful phrases, Talkie Tina begins threatening Eric. Eric initially believes the doll is malfunctioning or that Annabelle is playing a cruel trick. He tries to destroy Talkie Tina, first by unscrewing her head, then by throwing her in the trash, and finally by attempting to burn her. Each attempt fails, and the doll always returns intact. The tension escalates as Eric becomes increasingly paranoid, but no one else hears the doll's threats. In the chilling climax, Eric stumbles on the stairs after hearing Talkie Tina's voice, seemingly orchestrating his fall. The episode ends with Annabelle picking up the doll, which says ominously,
"My name is Talkie Tina. And you'd better be nice to me."
Talkie Tina was directly inspired by the real-life Chatty Cathy doll, which was popular in the early 1960s. Interestingly, June Foray also voiced Chatty Cathy, making her performance as Talkie Tina especially eerie. Savalas's portrayal of Eric as a deeply flawed and unlikable character helped anchor the story, making the doll's revenge feel satisfying yet terrifying. The doll's subtle movements were achieved with simple tricks like stop-motion photography and clever editing, heightening the tension without relying on overt supernatural visuals. The mix of psychological tension, family drama, and supernatural horror ensures Living Doll remains relevant and chilling decades later. Its minimalist storytelling and lack of overt gore focus instead on atmosphere and character dynamics make it timeless.
Then I can hurt you.
Not really, but I could hurt you.
Threats from above.
The Twilight Zone episode Caesar and Me is a memorable entry in the series. Season 5, Episode 28, originally aired on April 10th, 1964, cast Jackie Cooper as Jonathan West, Morgan Brittany as Susan, the young girl, and Sarah Selby as Mrs. Cudahy. The story revolves around Jonathan West, an Irish ventriloquist struggling to find work and make ends meet. Jonathan's fortunes take a sinister turn when his ventriloquist dummy, Caesar, begins to speak to him. Caesar is manipulative and conniving and encourages Jonathan to commit crimes, including theft, to improve his financial situation. The dummy appears to have a malevolent mind of its own. Jonathan is reluctant at first, but ultimately succumbs to Caesar's influence. This leads to a series of criminal acts that eventually result in Jonathan's capture. However, the ending reveals a chilling twist. The dummy's dark control extends beyond Jonathan to a young girl who lives nearby. The ventriloquist dummy, Caesar, is reminiscent of the dummy in a previous Twilight Zone episode called The Dummy in Season 3, Episode 33. Both episodes delve into the eerie and unsettling relationship between ventriloquists and their dummies. Like many Twilight Zone episodes, Caesar and Me has a chilling tone and an ending that leaves viewers questioning reality and morality. Jonathan West's portrayal of the hopeless ventriloquist is both sympathetic and pitiful. Jonathan's vulnerability makes him easy prey for Caesar's manipulations, highlighting how desperation can strip people down. Caesar serves as a dark foil to Jonathan, embodying cunning and ruthlessness. His sardonic tone and manipulative tactics make him one of the more memorable antagonists of the series. The young neighbor girl, Susan, represents innocence corrupted by proximity to evil. Her eagerness to follow Caesar's instructions at the end underscores the unsettling idea that Caesar's influence isn't limited to Jonathan. The Twilight Zone revisited ventriloquist dummies multiple times. As one of the later episodes in Season 5, Caesar and Me reflects the lower budget constraints of the series' final season. Unlike earlier episodes with more elaborate sets or effects, this episode relies heavily on dialogue and character interactions to drive its tension. While The Twilight Zone often focuses on morality tales or science fiction, Caesar and Me leans toward dark humor and psychological horror. While not as widely celebrated as The Twilight Zone's more iconic episodes, Caesar and Me remains a cult favorite due to its unsettling tone and the eerie dynamic between Jonathan and Caesar. The twist ending, where Susan picks up Caesar's criminal torch, lingers with viewers, suggesting that the cycle of corruption is endless.
We're a team, you see. You don't believe me, do you? Well, you just ask him. You ask Caesar. Go on, tell them. Tell them, Caesar. Tell them how you were only trying to help me, trying to take the pressures off of me.
1964, Devil Doll, a British horror film with a creepy ventriloquist dummy. Bryant Halliday plays the Great Varelli, a sinister ventriloquist and hypnotist with a disturbing secret. He performs with Hugo, a ventriloquist dummy that appears to have a life of its own, mesmerizing audiences with its autonomy and eerie realism. Journalist Mark English, played by William Sylvester, is intrigued by Varelli's act and begins investigating the performer after attending a show with his girlfriend, Marianne Horn, played by Yvonne Romain. As Mark digs deeper, he uncovers unsettling details about Varelli's past and his relationship with Hugo. Varelli is revealed to be a man steeped in dark magic and the occult. Hugo, it turns out, is not just a dummy. It's inhabited by the soul of a man, a former partner of Varelli who was cursed and trapped in the puppet's body. Hugo seeks revenge against Varelli for this cruel fate. The film builds to a climactic confrontation during a live performance. Hugo gains enough autonomy to turn against Varelli, leading to a chilling and tragic resolution where the boundaries between man and doll blur. Hugo's lifelike appearance and the way he moves and speaks create an unsettling atmosphere. The idea of a human soul trapped in an inanimate object is both tragic and terrifying, evoking sympathy for Hugo while amplifying the horror. Varelli is not only a master manipulator, but also a practitioner of dark magic, adding layers to his sinister character. Like many British horror films of the era, Devil Doll had a modest budget. The filmmakers leaned on the atmosphere, lighting, and Hugo's eerie design to build tension. The dummy's appearance is striking and intentionally unnerving, with exaggerated features and a cold, lifeless stare that contrasts with his autonomy. While there are supernatural elements, much of the film's tension comes from psychological horror, particularly the abusive relationship between Varelli and Hugo. Upon release, Devil Doll received mixed reviews, with some critics dismissing it as campy, while others praised its eerie atmosphere and unique spin on the ventriloquist dummy trope. Over time, it has developed a cult following among fans of vintage horror. Devil Doll solidified the ventriloquist dummy as a staple of horror.
You'll never win. You'll always lose.
Where the Woodbine Twineth is a standout episode from the 1965 run of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour, delivering a chilling blend of psychological horror and supernatural ambiguity. Based on a short story by Davis Grubb, this adaptation brings a haunting and melancholic atmosphere to the anthology series, leaving viewers with an unsettling sense of mystery. The episode centers on Ava, a lonely and imaginative orphan taken in by her strict Aunt Nell. From the outset, there's a clear clash between Ava's whimsical world of make-believe and Aunt Nell's rigid expectations. The introduction of Numa, a doll that Ava insists is alive, sets the stage for an eerie and escalating psychological conflict. As Ava becomes more engrossed in her imaginary world, the tension mounts, culminating in a chilling and ambiguous disappearance that leaves Aunt Nell and the audience questioning reality. Margaret Leighton delivers a compelling performance as Aunt Nell, portraying a woman torn between her desire to raise Eva properly and her growing fear of the strange happenings around her. Eileen Barrell, as Eva, is equally effective, capturing both innocence and an uncanny otherworldliness. Her unwavering belief in Numa is portrayed with such conviction that viewers are left questioning whether she is simply a lonely child retreating into fantasy, or if something more sinister is at play. One of the episode's greatest strengths is its ambiguity. Is Ava's fate supernatural, psychological, or something in between? The story explores themes of childhood loneliness, imagination as an escape, and the thin boundary between fantasy and reality. It also subtly critiques the way adults impose their structured world on children, often dismissing their emotional needs in the process. Where the Woodbine Twineth is a memorable episode of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour thanks to its eerie atmosphere, strong performances, and psychological depth. It's a perfect example of how the series blended horror and suspense that does not rely on overt scares. Instead, it uses mood, character development, and an ambiguous narrative to leave a lasting impact. This classic episode is a must-watch for fans of eerie, slow-burning psychological horror. Its haunting conclusion and unsettling themes make it a timeless entry in Hitchcock's television legacy.
Numa. It's Numa. He told me she'd be coming.
The 1960s set the stage for many creepy doll stories that would influence later decades of horror. From the Twilight Zone's iconic Talkie Tina to eerie films like Devil Doll, these works tapped into the primal fear of inanimate objects coming to life. They also helped establish themes of possession, revenge, and the uncanny, which continue to captivate audiences in modern creepy doll narratives.